Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 82. I'm Enigmius, and today, it's been a while since our last episode because I've been hard at work on this creative monstrosity that you see in front of you, and it's finally to the proof of concept stage. It's not perfect, there's a little bit of tweaking left to do, but relative to everything that's gone into it so far, that tweaking is pretty minor and pretty straightforward. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to see it, so that you know that there is progress being made. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that we've implemented since the last episode that would be meaningful in some way, and that'll be it. So it's not going to be a long episode, but it's got lots of stuff going on. This is the tether that we're going to be using to lower our mining rig. And just like it was with the Atlas, instead of using chained pistons to lower it, we're using a system that modifies the tether itself so that we can lower it as many times as we want, as long as we've got enough materials to keep extending the tether. We don't have to worry about pistons coming apart. We don't have to worry about any of that nonsense. But the key is that the system that makes those modifications, first of all, has to work. That's kind of important. And also, one of the things that I learned from the Atlas is that the simpler it is, the closer we can get it to one-button execution, so to speak, the more approachable the whole system is. If you've got to do a whole bunch of different manual steps to make things work, it's a little bit more of a pain in the ass. Ideally, this would be the kind of thing that we could set up running so that every time the bore head makes one or two revolutions, it automatically lowers the tether without any input from us. That's risky. That's dangerous, but we'll maybe discuss that once we've got the bore head in place and see how it's going to perform as well. So I think the only way to really kind of illustrate to you exactly how it's going to work and exactly the deficiencies that we have to iron out of it is to activate it. So to get it started, we're going to go down here to a control panel on one of the welders. Not that it matters what it's on, just any control panel will do. This is a little bit quicker than going inside to the control seat. And we're going to find the timers. Specifically the timers that are on the thing that we're looking for. And we're going to start, and we're going to close this. And we can watch the fireworks. It loves just flinging that cube at me every time. That's one of the things that we need to address, is making sure that everything's ground down neatly from the beginning. And you can see it rebuilds it, very simple and straightforward. And now, while it was in the process of welding it, these pistons came up so that they're in a position to catch it. And then when we drop it, we lower the pistons, and instead of dropping and then catching it and having gravity give it a certain amount of momentum, which is then used to damage it when it lands, we lower it with the pistons. We grab it with the landing gears. We grind off a few more things down low, and then we weld them up with the welders that are also down low. And it takes a little while to weld everything up. It takes its sweet old time, as they say. Now, I need to stress something, because obviously you can see that cube is just hanging out. It's free. It can do whatever it wants. Like I say, we're going to have to clean up the top area. Probably either moving or adding grinders so that the whole thing gets cleared off without any little refugees bouncing around or flying around, because those will eventually cause problems. It's pretty much a guarantee. They're going to get in the way of the pistons. They're going to get in the way of trying to weld things that need to be welded, whatever it is. So we need to clean that up. And if we come down here, carefully checking to make sure that none of the welders or grinders are left on in error by me. If we come down, we see that we've got a new connector that was put in place to connect with this connector, so that we've reattached the the tether with the storage. It needs to be actually physically connected. You see that they're both yellow. It's supposed to be toggled on, but I have a feeling that it tried toggling the wrong one, or it tried toggling it at a bad time, and it didn't quite go through. But the merge blocks are merged. These guys here will have to be a little bit careful. We'll have to do some testing to make sure that they properly lock together. And then this guy down here, this connector, should actually have been ground off. And part of that, the last little stage that we were doing, it should have been removed. Recycle the components back into the system so that we don't basically have just a row of connectors after this thing's been running for a while that are consuming materials and they don't actually serve a purpose. So obviously, we'll get a grinder in here so that this guy gets taken off as part of the final few steps of getting this all done. Now that was... I think I added it all up. It was 15 total steps that were executed by the timer blocks just by activating one. That's the biggest difference between this and the Atlas, is that the Atlas, you had timer blocks to help with batches of commands, but you still had to cycle through the blocks individually on your own. And a big part of the reason for that is that it was much more difficult with the Atlas to feel confident that you could do it from beginning to end and have everything work the way that it was supposed to, because there were so many moving parts. This doesn't have as many moving parts, so that means we can do it all with basically one button push. By the time this whole thing is said and done, we're just going to have one spot on an action bar that's taken up by the button to lower this guy. We'll also have the option of having one command to issue from the bore head itself to lower the tether on demand. So that's another option that we might have, as long as we can get it a little bit more consistent and a little more reliable. The biggest structural change that I've made since the last episode has been to the tether itself. This is the model of the tether that we use to make the blueprint for the one that's in there. We always have a model on the outside. It's thinner. It doesn't have as many blocks building it around the way that it did. And when it's done, it's going to have a bunch of artificial mass blocks. You can see them down here. These were added after the fact, obviously, because for whatever reason, even though the inner ring of our auto gyro didn't really have anything that would cause it to move and was set so that it had a braking force applied if it was turned off, which both rotors were, it still started turning, and it just started turning, and it wouldn't stop turning. And eventually, it got to the point where the tether contacted the outer ring and smashed it, knocked a big chunk out of it. And the funny thing was, it was so slow. It was so very slow. The rate at which it was turning, I couldn't even record it because it was so slow. But eventually, as slow as it was, it made contact with the outer ring and smashed about 4 blocks. And I was like, wow, that would have been hilarious if we could have recorded it in real time, but we didn't. So we got the mass blocks to keep this guy from kind of rotating around on its own without any help. This guy's going to be top heavy by the time we're done. And I don't necessarily mind it being top heavy, because if it's top heavy, it means we've got more room underneath to fit in the bore head and all the other stuff that we have to do. But we have to keep that in mind. So when we've got this thing set up where it doesn't have a bore head attached, we'll have these 4 artificial mass blocks that we can turn on, create a little bit of weight on the bottom, and keep this guy from flipping and flopping around. So that's the other thing that we're going to do with the tether. Other than that, it's basically done. We've cleaned up a bunch of things, simplified a bunch of things, set up the inventory system so that it's mostly detached from the rest of the conveyor system in the ship. It got a little bit difficult at the very end to place things without having them connect with things we didn't necessarily want them to, but it's basically 95% done. So for the next episode, we're going to clean up the things that we need to clean up. We're going to place the grinders we need to do a better job of this top area, as well as grinding off the connector down low. And we're going to do a bunch more testing to see if it's an irregularity in the game or if it's an irregularity in what we've tried to set it up to do that is preventing those 2 connectors from showing as locked. But realistically speaking, we're in very, very good shape. Once we've done that little bit of extra stuff that we need to do to get this thing tuned and ready to go, we're going to start on the bore head, which is going to be quite a bit different in the shape of it compared to the last couple that we've done. But I think the function, I mean, I don't expect it to function better necessarily, but I think it'll work better with this design than having a big wedge kind of thing that just really wants to dig deep in the middle and not nearly so deep on the sides. That's what I've been up to. That's why there haven't been too many episodes, is because this was a lot of tweaking and tuning and setting up, and every time it doesn't work the way you want it to, it leaves a mess. So the best way to fix it is to log out of the game and then reload a save before it made the mess so that you can continue, and it just takes time. It takes a little bit of time. So the next episode will be out when I have similar progress to show you guys. And if you want to be notified when I add that episode, you can subscribe to my channel, or you can follow me on social media. Links for social media in the information box below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.